Hello, 190. Welcome back. I've missed you guys. Speaking of back, I had a great little joke saved up about a boomerang, but I can't seem to remember it. Don't worry, I'm sure it'll come back to me. You're welcome. Okay. Welcome back. I think it's appropriate at this moment that we say, I hope you are all well. And while I'm a little disappointed that this is how the class is going to look moving forward, um, such is life, and we move on with it. Speaking of move on with it, to do so, we should probably talk a little bit about expectations and grades and remaining assignments. So here we go. Of your remaining assignments, you still have the character anthology due on April 22nd and the final paper, which we haven't said much about yet, but will be coming and given more detail the closer we get to that date. What you would want to be doing at this point is, even though you're looking at characters and stories and cultural patterns, is begin examining or looking for that issue or that lens which you find surfing the most interesting. Meaning, okay, I like looking at it from I don't know, a theorist point of view, like Cohen as a subcultural event, or I like looking at the issues of women's and gender studies, or issues of race, or whatever. It's a culture all its own. Hopefully, that interest then it becomes something you can chase down in any given cultural artifact or example or work that you would like. And the world is your oyster as far as that goes. You can choose anything you want within the framework of surfing, but anything. So that more information coming about that will make that more concrete the closer we get to it. But just start thinking in those terms, like, okay, what really interests me of this stuff that we're doing? I mean, yes, I'm going to make you do it all. Sorry. But of all of it, what do I really find intriguing and engaging? And those are the questions that you want to ask of this thing when it comes time for that last paper. Okay, as long as we're also talking expectations, time to talk another big paradigm shift, and that is the weekly response. Early on here, you'll see that I've asked you to engage with each reading with separate due dates, right? That will start to fade out as we get closer to the final paper, because you'll be working on that, and your character anthologies, because you'll be working on those. Though for the time being, you'll see those, there are earlier due dates in the week. At the end of every week, though, there will always be a weekly response. And this is usually somewhere in the neighborhood of a 2-page response to those things which you've been assigned during the week, whether they were readings or videos or whatever was collected on the module. How do these things interact, right? Now, I will always offer a prompt or some sort of directed question to get you thinking as to how these things interact, but you are always free to create your own sort of unifying thesis among them and chase that through them. You know, what interests you? Here it is in this thing. Here's why I find it interesting. Here it is in this thing. Here's why I find it interesting. Your thesis does not have to be resolved at the end. You can just say, this is what this is the thing that I see tying these 3 things together, and sort of explore them. Though it doesn't have to be a finished, unified paper. Cleanly written would be nice, right? And and at least understandable, but it's not it's a weekly response. Okay. Let's take a look at the weekly responses and sort of their format. And while we're in there, we can take a look
Take a
at
look at week 11. Here you were on spring break. Hopefully, you followed my advice. I gave you the points. Here we are in COVID break, and here we are returning to school virtually. So, the first thing that we talked about was weekly responses and how those are going to be conducted. Here you got the print version of what I was trying to explain. Each week, you are to turn in a response of 600 words minimum, maximum 3 pages. Those some of you like to do a little bit more or always chase things down a little bit more. The idea is not to make these lengthy papers, but to make them comprehensive for the things that you were asked to read or view for the week. What do? You can explore connections or contrasts between the readings. You can take up a salient issue in a primary reading, or you can pick up on a previous class discussion and apply it to that week's list of things. They're not always readings. Sometimes they'll be videos, sometimes they'll be a variety of things. The papers, your weekly responses, although brief, should have specific textual references. Don't just deal in generalities, but actually quote, use examples, be specific. They should also have a thesis. Think of the thesis as a controlling idea. What is it that you're going to use that sort of connects all these things together? The rest of my little explanation here tells you things that you could do to connect all these things together. You could use a theory or a theorist or a social lens, right? Gender and race. Use that as sort of a way to link these things together. Please feel free in your responses to add video or photos or screenshots or links as appropriate. As we move on, we may even alter the way that this is done and allow video. But for now, we're going to write them and do it the old-fashioned way until we get kind of comfortable with handling this part of what I'm asking you to do. Okay, that takes care of the weekly response in specific. Let's take a look at week 11. Here's week 11. If you look, you have actually separate due dates this week, early in the week, midweek, and at the end on Sunday. Okay, let's take a look at the first, Charlie Don't Surf, Surfing in the Counterculture, and the reading questions. It's just the chapter, a little link appropriate to the chapter, and the reading questions that come with it, right? You submit it via Word doc, just like we do normally. Should be pretty self-explanatory. That's the first one that's due. The second one that is due is Surfing Turns Pro, and that also has some reading questions with it, and two related mini trailers that are discussed within the reading itself. So that also should be pretty self-explanatory. Then at the end of the week, I've asked you to give your first weekly response, which asks you to have read this and this, which you had to do earlier in the week to complete the other two assignments, plus engage in the two extra links that you'll find here. One about Chris Malloy and one by Sam George called the Tom Curran Experience. Right? Two big names that I've asked you about for a reason. Oops, went 1 week too far. There we go. So what I have asked you to do is consider this and these two guys, right? And then comment or reflect on the two competing versions of surf culture, or what we termed as oppositional forces in our early notes on the delineations of surfing. And also you got kind of these two guys who are a middle ground. Last thing that's worth noting, without reading all this to you, is this. You are to find some visual cultural artifact of your own, a photo, a short film, a web page, a multimedia article of pro surfing or counterculture surfing of your choice. Anything that you find challenging or interesting or worthy of comment. Consider again how you're sort of tying these things together. Are you looking at gender and race? Are you looking at the issues of pro and corporate versus counterculture and not? Are you going to look at it as far as Hebdige might concern about style and style patterns that are unique to culture? Or are you going to look at it through the lens of Cohen and what it means to be subculture and how this is and this isn't? I don't know. It's open to you. But you are to find something else, right? So you've got these two, and one of your own. You need only one. In your response, compose your thoughts and ideas regarding the readings first, this stuff, before transitioning to your stuff. And that, I think, will give you a better framework for even how to connect all of it together. Okay. Hopefully that clears up most of it. If you still have questions, we'll talk about what to do with that next. Week 12 is not released yet. You can see in my version, I have not published it for you yet. Don't worry, it will be released and set to be released automatically on Thursday. And then every week following until we get to the end, we'll always release on a Thursday. That gives you a few extra days to engage in some of the material, but keeps you from just dump loading assignments all in my lap at once. And as well allows you to do a little bit more quality exploration than just quantity, right? We want to maintain some of what we had going on in the classroom, even though we're not there. So week 11, week 12, forthcoming. Stay tuned. That's about it.
Okay, that's it. You've seen the weekly responses and you've seen what you need for week 11, so hopefully you can get on it and get caught back up. Those of you who have questions or need additional help, please let's start with email first, and that way we can arrange the way to help you best, whether that's Zoom or even if just picking up a phone and making a phone call. Let's start with email and then we'll move from there. All right, week 12, you can look for that. We'll release on Thursday, the big exciting release date for that. And that's about it. I think if you have, again, any other questions, just please don't hesitate to email and reach out. Stay safe, stay well, wash your damn hands. That's about it. I guess if there was any other advice I would leave you with is I would avoid eating sushi. It's a little fishy.